Okay, so on this Mondays with Moriniki, we're going to do part two of this series where we're talking about recalibration. So last week we talked about reflection and really the importance of doing reflection multiple times throughout the year and not just waiting until the end of the year to do that kind of annual reflection. And while that's important, it shouldn't be the only time that you're really seeing how much on track you are with your milestones. So now that you've done that, and if you haven't, go back and watch that video from last week. But we want to look at how we recalibrate and why we recalibrate. And the reason is that, capacity is not consistent and, priorities aren't permanent. And so as your capacity changes, sometimes your commitments have to change as well. And by that I mean is that a lot of times we are making commitments at a time when we actually did feel like we had the capacity. And sometimes it's like we're just super excited. And so we're just like, oh, I want to do all the things. But then when it actually comes time to execute on that thing, we realize that we don't actually have the kind of space in our calendar. We don't even have the energy to do it. And so now we find ourselves in a situation where we're overcommitted or overwhelmed or overdue. And so it's important for us to take the time to recalibrate. And so what that looks like is first you want to kind of just when you're recalibrating, validate that the goals and like the priorities that you set for Q1, they haven't shifted. Because again, sometimes we start out the year with the best of intentions. We have the kind of goals and priorities that we think are going to be our focus. And then life starts lifing, things kind of start moving in whatever direction. And so sometimes those goals and priorities no longer are what they were at the top of the year. And that's fine, but you need to take stock. And so validate that what you said was the goal and the priority still is. Like, is the main thing still the main thing? And then you also want to take the time to do a little bit of calculating. So you want to calculate what are any new capacity constraints that you have. Because again, capacity is not constant. And so has your capacity shifted? Have new things come in that have put an additional demand on your time? And so if you thought you were going to have like 10 hours a week to work on something, calculate and see if like does that actually still hold? But now it's like you've got recital or you've got ballet or you've got gym. And so you actually have four. And again, this isn't about good or bad. It's just about us taking time to realize what is realistic going forward so that we're setting ourselves up for success. And so after you kind of validate and calculate, you want to acclimate. And all this is making the necessary adjustments based on what this new reality is. And so we've reflected on what went well, what didn't in Q1. And so now, as we're recalibrating, we're looking at, do my priorities still hold? Have I factored in new capacity constraints? And based on all the data sets that I have at this point, how and what adjustments do I need to make in order to optimize myself going into Q2? And again, when we don't do this, we tend to find ourselves in situations where we're overcommitted, where we're overwhelmed, where we're overdue. And by that, I mean like we're missing deadlines because we're just not being honest about the limitations that we're currently experiencing in that season. And so when we think about recalibrating, I want you to think about not just the importance of doing it, but what is also the cost of when you don't do it. And so when you fail to recalibrate, and it's the misses, and it's not just missed opportunities. It can be missed moments, like missed moments with loved ones, missed moments with friends, or just even going to a game because you've overextended yourself, you've overcommitted, and there's now things that matter to you and that you want to do that you can't do because you don't have time and you haven't recalibrated and you haven't been honest to say like these things actually in this season they're not actually important or they're not priorities right now, and so I can move them or they get kind of moved off my plate altogether. So now you have time and space for that thing that is a priority, that is a moment that you want to honor and create space for in this season. But when you don't recalibrate, you end up missing things that you otherwise could have accommodated. And the other thing that happens is then that can lead to regrets because now you're regretting like I didn't make it to the recital or I didn't make it to this, vacation, or I didn't make it to this Pilates class. Like whatever that thing is for you, when we don't recalibrate, we stay in this mindset that I don't have time, when in fact you would have time to do the things that matter if you took the time to figure out where are there some shifts and some adjustments that I can and should make based on what I've decided is important to me in this season. And so hopefully that's helpful. I really just want you to lean into doing that. And this isn't like some, beat yourself up type of thing. It really just is challenging this kind of social mindset of FOMO, which I think has us committing to all of these things because we have this fear of missing out and we're supposed to be there for everything. But like I like JOMO. And so it's like the joy of missing out because the reality is if everything is important and you're there for everything, then like nothing is actually that important. You're putting everything on the same equal playing field. Sometimes the fact that you're not there is because this other thing right now is more important to you. And it's not to poo-poo on this other, event or activity. It's just saying that all things cannot be equal from a prioritization standpoint. And we've got to get out of the mindset of trying to put this one shelf with everything on it because that's just not how we have and set ourselves up for sustainable living and thriving as opposed to surviving. So drop a comment, let me know what you're going to kind of recalibrate or how you're going to recalibrate, and I'll talk to you next week.